The waves crashed against the rocks, making a low roar, which was very much like the sound of fishing boat engines at night in the old port area. Boyu took a deep breath of the salty air, adjusted his diving goggles, and dived into the dark sea. The lights of the port city reflected mottled light and shadow on the water, but now that he was diving to a depth of 30 meters, there was only a blue silence left in the world. Only the bubbles from the oxygen tank occasionally popped up to remind him that this was not sleepwalking, but a real-life investigation. The waterproof flashlight in his hand swept across the wreckage. The wreckage of the old ship named Sea Eagle was stuck crookedly on the edge of the submarine canyon. The hull is covered with seaweed and shells, like a forgotten ghost. Boyu's heart beat faster. This was not his first time exploring the water, but this time it was different. The client's mysterious phone call is still echoing in my ears. "Boy, the treasure on that ship is missing, but there is something wrong inside. If you dare to answer it, go and have a look." He swam into the breach in the cabin, and the smell of rust mixed with the rotten smell of seawater hit his face. The flashlight beam swayed, illuminating scattered fragments of wooden boxes and broken masts. Boyu moved forward cautiously, his flippers gently pushing away the plankton. Suddenly, a dark red trace came into view. The mottled bloodstains on the bulkhead wall seemed to have been diluted by seawater, but it was still dazzling. Not fresh, but definitely not rusty. He stretched out his glove and touched it, feeling the sticky texture. "Damn, this is blood." Boyu murmured softly, countless possibilities flashing through his mind. Shipwreck? Accident? Still. He shook his head, took a photo, and stored it in a waterproof camera. The client was a guy who called himself Old Sea Wolf, and his voice was hoarse as if he had swallowed too much cigarettes. He said that the ship was an expedition ship that disappeared in the storm last month, carrying a group of ocean treasure hunters sponsored by wealthy businessmen. The target is the legendary shipwreck treasure, a box of Qing dynasty porcelain and gold coins worth hundreds of millions. But after the fleet lost contact, the treasure evaporated, leaving only the wreckage floating on the water. When Boyu surfaced, it was already light. The harbor was filled with mist. He climbed into his boat, took off his wetsuit, and was soaked all over. When the cell phone signal finally recovered, he dialed Minghui's number immediately. The familiar sound of keyboard tapping came from the other end, and Minghui's voice sounded lazily as if he had just woken up. "Hello, Boyu? You got into trouble again so early in the morning?" "It's not about causing trouble, it's about discovering the source of trouble." Boyu gasped, leaning on the side of the ship and watching the freighter in the distance slowly enter the port. Port cities are always like this, as lively as the Chinese New Year, but they hide countless secrets. Do you remember the commission I mentioned to you? The case of the missing treasure from the sunken ship. I just got off the wreckage of the Sea Eagle. There was blood in the cabin. It was not washed by seawater, but dried blood. I sent you the photo. Minghui paused for a moment, and then the file download prompt sounded. "Wow, brother, this doesn't look good. The blood splatter pattern looks like a ruptured artery. It's not like an accidental fall. Are you sure this is an expedition ship? Not some contraband?" Boyu rubbed his temples and recalled the details of the commission. "That was the job I picked up at the harbor bar last night." A middle-aged man in a hat gave him a yellowed map and said in a low voice, "A team of 10 people sponsored by the wealthy businessman Mr. Lee went into the sea to explore the old shipwreck site. A storm came, and their signal was cut off. The rescue team picked up the wreckage, and the treasure box was empty. Mr. Lee was so anxious that he spent a lot of money to find someone to investigate. But I suspect there is something wrong. There is a captain in the team named Zhang Wei, who is experienced and always avoids the easy." "Zhang Wei?" Minghui's tone became excited, and the background sound was the hum of a computer fan. "I have heard of this name. He is a legend in the ocean exploration circle. It is said that he has operated several old ships and specializes in digging out sunken treasures. But there are rumors that he has connections with some multinational companies." "Wait, let me check the data." Boyu nodded, although Minghui couldn't see it. He started the boat and headed towards the port pier. The sea breeze ruffled his hair, and he couldn't help but replay the entire incident in his mind. Rich businessman Mr. Lee is a local boss who made his fortune by shipping and is keen on ocean adventures. This time he spent a lot of money to form a team, and the target was a Qing dynasty shipwreck in the South China Sea, which is said to contain national treasure porcelain. It was calm when the expedition set off, but unexpectedly a typhoon struck and all signals were cut off. During the rescue, only the empty shell of the Sea Eagle was recovered. The whereabouts of the team members were unknown and the treasure was missing. Mr. Lee immediately blocked the news, but the client, the old Sea Wolf, was an old sailor in the team and secretly approached Boyu because he did not believe the official statement of shipwreck accident. When the boat docked, Boyu's phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. "Mr. Detective, I am Mr. Lee's secretary. Has the commission been confirmed? We need results, the sooner the better." The voice was urgent, with the unquestionable tone of a superior. "Confirmed. But I have made a new discovery," Boyu said as he walked, stepping on the slippery pier planks. Surrounded by the cries of morning market vendors, selling hot fish ball soup and oyster omelet, the fragrant aroma made him temporarily forget about the gloomy seabed. "There are blood stains on the boat, which is not caused by a natural disaster. I suspect this is not just a disappearance case, but may involve murder." The secretary was silent for a moment and then said, "This. Mr. Lee never mentioned it. What support do you need? Money? Equipment? Don't worry yet. I have a partner helping with analysis." Boyu hung up the phone and walked quickly towards the parking lot. His classic car was parked there, its engine making a familiar coughing sound. As he drove back to the city, he pieced together clues in his mind. The bloodstains were deep in the cabin, near the treasure storage area. The angle of the splash shows someone trying to escape when they were attacked. Not pirate raids, that's too cliché. In this technological age, it is more likely that someone is at work. Back in his small apartment, Minghui was already waiting on the video link. On the screen, Minghui was wearing headphones and staring at multiple windows. "Dude, I scanned your photo. The blood is high in salt, but there's enough DNA left. Give me a few hours and I'll hack into the forensic database for comparison. But listen, this case isn't easy. I just hacked the port surveillance." Before the expedition set off, an unknown truck approached the dock and unloaded some electronic equipment. It looks like an encrypted communicator, not standard expedition equipment. Boyu poured a cup of hot tea and sat at the table. The apartment is filled with old maps and mystery novels, and the walls are covered with photos of ocean ruins. Encrypted communication? Doesn't that mean they are doing some secret deal on the ship? The treasure is just a cover? Minghui smiled and tapped the keyboard as fast as a machine gun. The enemy. Think about it, transnational smuggling syndicates love to use sunken ships as cover. Money transfer and data theft are all mixed together. Let me dig into Zhang Wei's background. There are loopholes in this old guy's ship registration record. He has changed his route several times to avoid international patrol areas. Maybe he is responsible for the bloodstains. Boyu frowned and his heart sank. His passion for the ocean has been ingrained since childhood. When he was growing up on the coast of southern Taiwan, he always dreamed of being an explorer. But now, the passion is tinged with conspiracy. If it is really a murder, we have to be careful. There's a mixed bag here at the port, and I heard that there are gangs focusing on this case. Minghui, can you hack into the satellite data of the fleet? Take a look at the last signal before the disappearance. It's all on me. But what about you? What's the next step? Confront Mr. Lee directly? Or sneak back to the sunken ship to dig out more evidence? Boyu looked out the window. The steam whistle of the ship in the port was blaring, as if calling. He felt a familiar rush of excitement, the thrill of a logic puzzle beginning to take shape. I'm going to meet the client first and dig up the details about Zhang Wei. At the same time, you can help me contact my forensic friends and analyze the bloodstains. There's something wrong with this case. I have to find out who is behind this storm. Minghui nodded, the window flashing with code flow. Okay, brother. Be careful, the ghosts in the sea are not just bloodstains. Boyu hung up the video call and grabbed his coat. Outside the door, the hustle and bustle of the city surged in, and he knew that this was just the beginning. The secret of the sunken ship is like the undercurrent of the deep sea, quietly affecting a larger whirlpool. Boyu pushed open the apartment door, and the hustle and bustle of the city instantly surrounded him. The morning rush hour in the port area is like a pot of boiling fish soup, with locomotives buzzing back and forth, and the cries of vendors mixed with the smell of diesel and seafood. He shook the water off his head. The dive just now made him feel like a fish that had just landed and got on his old motorcycle, the engine roaring into the traffic. The destination is the Marine Biological Laboratory on the outskirts of the city, where his old acquaintance, forensic assistant Ling Fei, is hiding. She is not a formal forensic doctor, but she specializes in the delicate skills of bloodstain analysis. Even the police like to ask her for help. When passing by a roadside stall, Boyu couldn't help but stop and grab a hot scallion pancake for breakfast. Taking a bite, the oily taste, combined with the salty breeze from the port, always made his head clearer. Bloodstains, multiple victims? He muttered to himself as he chewed, and the dazzling dark red color of the cabin flashed in his mind. It's not a simple shipwreck, this case is like a deep sea fog, hiding a knife. The laboratory building is hidden in the green shade. Its appearance is low-key like a library, but the equipment inside is flashing with blue light and is full of high-tech instruments. Boyu parked the car and swiped his card to enter. The air was filled with the strange smell of disinfectant and seaweed. He went straight to the analysis room on the third floor and knocked on the door. "Sister Fei, good morning. I have a job coming." The door opened and Ling Fei looked up. Wearing goggles, she looked like a scientist in a science fiction movie. She has neat short hair and the sleeves of her white robe are rolled up, revealing the ocean tattoo on her arm, a shark, symbolizing her dedication to the sea. "Boyu? It's so early in the morning, and you still have the smell of seawater on your face. What's the trouble?" She smiled, her voice was clear and soft with a Taiwanese accent, which made people relax. Boyu took out a sealed sample tube from his backpack, which contained bloodstain residue scraped from the ship's bulkhead. "It's not a trouble, it's a mystery. I dived into the wreckage of the Sea Eagle last night, and there was dried blood deep in the cabin. It wasn't rust, and it wasn't stained by seawater. Analyze it for me, including DNA, year, and cause." He handed over the tube, his eyes bright, like a child sharing a treasure. Ling Fei took it, frowned slightly, put on gloves and opened the microscope. "The treasure from the sunken ship? I heard that Mr. Li spent a lot of money and the entire fleet was wiped out. You are so brave, you dare to go into the water alone." As she spoke, she dropped the sample into the test tube, the instrument started buzzing, and a diagram of the molecular structure popped up on the screen. "Sit down, we have to wait for half an hour. Have a cup of coffee?" The instant one from the laboratory, guaranteed not to be bitter. Boyu leaned on his chair and looked around the room. The walls were covered with blood spatter charts and 3D models simulating shipwrecks. "Thanks, Sister Fei. I not only want to know whose blood it is, but also where it came from. From the angle of the spray, it looks like someone was being chased and chopped, trying to escape. There were 10 people on the boat, and they disappeared as soon as the storm came. The official said it was an accident, but I smell the fishy smell of conspiracy." Ling Fei nodded, adjusted the instrument, and the screen flashed with data flow. Bloodstain analysis is not child's play, especially under the corrosion of seawater. Salt will interfere with DNA, but these residues are still intact. She paused for a moment, turned to look at him. "You love the ocean, I understand. The attraction of the deep blue is like picking up shells at the beach in Kenting when I was a child. But the secrets in the sea are often thorny. Remember the last smuggling case? The bloodstains prove that a mole was behind it." Half an hour later, the instrument dinged, and Ling Fei approached the screen, her expression serious. "Here it comes, Boyu. This blood stain belongs to more than one person. At least 3 DNA markers are mixed in the splatter. The main blood type is O, male, 30 to 40 years old, the other is AB type, female, the third trace remains too little, but has trace elements characteristic of children. She turned around and took off her goggles, her eyes flashing with professional sharpness. It was not an accident. The spatter pattern showed high-pressure arterial bleeding, like cutting with a sharp weapon. The seawater diluted it, but the shape of the wound pointed to a deliberate attack. Someone was killed in the cabin, and the blood was splashed on the wall before it was washed away. The time was around the time of the typhoon last month. Boyu's heart sank and his fists clenched unconsciously. Multiple victims, including children? The expedition is a treasure hunting group sponsored by wealthy businessmen. How could children be involved? This is wrong, Sister Faye. The treasure is missing, the whereabouts of the team members are unknown, and now the bloodstains prove that it is murder. It must be done by an insider. His mind was spinning rapidly. Captain Zhang Wei, experienced but evasive, the electronic equipment of the unknown truck, and the warning of the client, Old Sea Wolf. Ling Fei patted him on the shoulder, her tone gentle but firm. I will run another comparison and connect to the police database to see if there is a match in the missing records. But be careful, this case sounds like a transnational gang. Smuggling syndicates love to use shipwrecks as cover to kill people and silence them. She handed him a preliminary report with dense charts on the paper. Take it, the evidence is enough for you to disrupt the situation. If you need me to testify in court, please tell me any time. Thank you, Sister Faye. You are always my savior. Boyu stood up and hugged her. The team's tacit understanding deepened in these small actions. When he left the laboratory, the sun shone into the corridor, and he began to put the puzzle pieces together in his mind. The bloodstains pointed to murder, the treasure was just a cover, and there was a bigger deal behind it. At noon, Boyu rode his bicycle to the Café Sea Breeze corner by the port. This place was their fixed base. Outside the window was the view of freighters coming in and out, and the smell of coffee and salted fish was floating in the air. He pushed the door open and walked in. Ming Hui had already occupied the corner table, with his laptop screen on and headphones in his ears, like a miner digging for treasure. Dude, you're 5 minutes late. How about the bloodstains? Ming Hui looked up, eyes narrowed, and a smirk on his lips. He was wearing a loose t-shirt with a cartoon Hackers Never Sleep printed on it, a typical tech nerd style. Boyu took off his helmet, sat down and ordered an iced Americano. It's not good. There are bloodstains on 3 people, deliberate murder. Sister Faye said it was cut with a sharp weapon, deep in the cabin, left behind when escaping. It's not a shipwreck, it was someone who did it. He pushed the report over and whispered, what about you? How is the satellite data scan? Is there anything fishy around the sunken ship? Ming Hui smiled, tapped the keyboard a few times, and the screen switched to the map view, a satellite image of the South China Sea, with red dots marking anomalies. I hacked into weather satellites and port surveillance, and conducted preliminary scans before and after the disappearance of the Sea Eagle. Look here, when the storm hit, the ship's GPS signal was cut off, but there were abnormal pulses around it. It was not a standard distress call, but an encrypted data stream, like transmitting a large file. Location off course, close to the edge of international waters. He zoomed in on the screen and pointed at a series of waveforms. This signal trace, repeated 3 times, points to a private server in the Philippines. Guess? It matches Zhang Wei's old ship record. He circled there last time. Boyu came closer and frowned. Fake sailing records? The fleet set off in calm conditions, so why did it suddenly veer off course? Zhang Wei, an old fox, has rich experience, but he was vague about the client. Old Sea Wolf said that he always avoids talking about the details on the ship. What if he is a mole, helping the smuggling group to move treasures, and then silence him? The bloodstains prove that a child was victimized. Isn't this a human trafficker's business? Ming Hui shook his head, took a sip of coffee, and smiled bitterly. Kid? That's darker. Think of a technological thriller, hacker data, money transfers, all hidden in the wreckage of a sunken ship. There are loopholes in Zhang Wei's ship registration, and I found out that he has connections with multinational shipping companies, Mr. Li's competitors. Maybe the treasure is bait, and the real thing is a data chip, stolen trade secrets, or military intelligence. Abnormal signals are evidence. They encrypted them and uploaded them on the ship, and then the shipwreck destroyed the body. Boyu rubbed his chin. A flood of clues came to his mind: multiple DNA in the blood, abnormal pulses from the satellite, Zhang Wei's blurry background. This is not a simple disappearance, but a carefully planned conspiracy. Ocean adventure is wrapped in the dark side of technology. He patted Minghui on the shoulder and said with excitement and tension, "We have to dig deeper. Contact Old Sea Wolf and ask Zhang Wei about his habits on the ship. You continue to chase the source of the signal. I feel that the storm is not a natural disaster, but man-made. They use weather interference to cover up murder." Minghui nodded, his eyes shining. "I like teamwork. Dude, this case will make us famous in the port. But be careful, the gang's eyes are watching." He typed the last line of code, and a new clue popped up on the screen: a blurry photo of a truck, with a license plate pointing to Zhang Wei's old warehouse. Boyu looked out the window. The sea surface was sparkling, but there was an undercurrent hidden inside. He knew that the next step was to go straight to Huanglong to confront Zhang Wei. But now, the outlines of the conspiracy are gradually emerging, like a reef on the seabed, waiting for them to collide. Boyu pushed open the door of the cafe. The afternoon sun lengthened his shadow, and the sea breeze blew in his face with the whistle of the freighter in the distance. He and Minghui walked into the port parking lot side by side. Minghui's laptop was still tucked under his arm, and the open code window flashed in the corner of the screen. "The photo of the truck is a breakthrough," Boyu said as he walked. "Zhang Wei's warehouse is at the East Pier. Let's go check it out tonight. But don't worry, your hacker drama has to start quickly. That multinational trading company, Mr. Li's enemy, remember? Their data system may contain navigation records." Minghui grinned and got on his electric scooter, the engine humming softly. "Brother, your logic always hits the mark. The multinational trading company is called Blue Shark Logistics. On the surface, it sells shipping services. Who knows behind the scenes? Their servers are hosted in Singapore. I have to bypass the firewall, just like diving to avoid the ocean current." He put on his sunglasses and accelerated his scooter to follow Boyu's motorcycle. "Come to my studio, which is well equipped. Chat while invading, so as not to be targeted by the port's spies." The two soon arrived at Minghui's hiding place, a loft hidden in a converted old warehouse. The walls were covered with LED light strips, and the air was filled with the smell of energy drinks and burnt circuit boards. Minghui opened the door and went straight to the console. Several screens lit up, like a control center in a science fiction movie. "Sit tight, Boyu. This invasion is low-key, and Blue Shark's security is top-notch AI surveillance plus quantum encryption. I cut in from the traces of satellite signals, pretending to be a backdoor for port surveillance." He tapped on the keyboard, his fingers flying, and a green data stream jumped out on the screen, accompanied by a low beep. Boyu leaned on the sofa and stared at the screen. The excitement in his heart surged like a wave, but he was a little more vigilant. When he was diving alone a few days ago, he was almost swept away by the undercurrent, and now this virtual battlefield also contains traps. "Lock the logbook first," he guided in a low voice. Zhang Wei's fleet departure record is officially said to have deviated due to a storm, but Sister Faye's bloodstains prove that someone was involved on the ship. Look for the timestamp. Are there any traces of tampering in the GPS data before and after the typhoon? Minghui nodded, the corners of his mouth raised, and his eyes reflected the blue light of the screen. "I understand, you are responsible for the brain, and I am responsible for the fingers. Look here." He opened a virtual terminal, and data poured out like a waterfall. "I implanted a Trojan horse and bypassed the first layer of firewall. Now enter the core database. Wow, these guys' logs are encrypted like iron barrels, but there are loopholes. Wait, alert. Their AI has detected an abnormality." The screen flashed red. The virtual guard program chased Minghui's code like a hound. The buzzer sounded loudly, and Minghui's forehead sweated. "Calm down." Boyu came closer, his mind spinning rapidly. "Switch the IP, bounce off the Philippine server, just like a ship taking a detour to avoid the wind. Don't touch it head-on, just go in a circle to steer it away." His voice was steady, with the calmness of a detective. At this moment, he felt that he was not just watching a show, but truly immersed in this digital chase. Minghui obeyed. The keyboard sound was like raindrops, the red light gradually turned yellow, and finally, they broke into the log file folder. "It's done." "Look at these forged records." Minghui took a breath and enlarged a bunch of documents. The route of the Sea Eagle was supposed to go straight to the wreck site, but it was diverted and detoured into international waters. The timestamp was swiped 3 times, pretending to be storm interference. "Boyu, this confirms that the shipwreck was not a natural disaster, but a human navigation error." "Yes. Someone deliberately drove the ship into the reef area." He scrolled the mouse, and another file popped up. "There are also money transfers. There were 3 large remittances from the Blue Shark Logistics account on the day of the disappearance, marked as expedition supplies, but the amount was ridiculously high. Tracking the IP, the money flowed to Zhang Wei's personal account." Boya's eyes narrowed and his heartbeat quickened. This is not just evidence, it is ironclad evidence. The thread of conspiracy emerges from the virtual network, like the outline of coral on the seabed. This old guy Zhang Wei collected black money and diverted the route, and the people on the ship became victims. Treasure? Maybe it was a cover, and the real thing was a smuggled data chip. He paused, and an idea flashed in his mind. In the past, he always relied on intuition to make impulses, but now he has learned the patience to peel off layers, and he is more alert to smell the smell of danger. Just as he was talking, Minghui's cell phone rang. It was a video call. Boyu glanced at it and saw Ling Fei on the caller ID. "Take that, Sister Fei's timing is always right." Minghui clicked on it, the screen switched, and Ling Fei's face appeared. She was still in the laboratory, and her white robe was stained with blue dye, making it look like a shell just fished out of the sea. "You too, you moved so fast." Ling Fei's voice came from the speaker, with a familiar softness. "I just finished a DNA comparison and connected it to the police and the missing port database. The subject of the bloodstains is a type O male, matching Chen Kai, the deputy captain of the expedition, 35 years old, who went to sea with Zhang Wei last month. The type AB female is teen Dr. Xiao Lu, 30 years old. Now Wei measure children's DNA. Oh my god, it's Chen Kai's son, Xiao Ming, who is only 8 years old. It was supposed to be a family adventure, but they all disappeared." She frowned, and a comparison chart flashed on the screen. The blood spatter showed that they were attacked during an argument in the cabin. It was not an accident, Boyu, this was a deliberate attempt to silence them. Smuggling groups love this method, and they don't even spare the children. Boyu clenched his fists, and the dark red color of the cabin appeared in his mind, and now it had a name. "Sister Fei, thank you. This puzzle piece fits the puzzle." What did Chen Kai and the others find that made them take action? Blue Shark's money flowed to Zhang Wei, the route was forged. "We have to lock down the smuggling clues." His tone became more firm, and the traces of growth were revealed at this moment. From fighting alone to relying on the team, he began to see the undercurrent of the overall situation. Ling Fei nodded and smiled. "I will help you back up the data. It will be used in court. But be careful, these groups have spies hanging around the port. Minghui, don't leave any tail in your invasion." Minghui gestured okay, turned off the video, and turned to Boyu, Sister Fei's professional rescue. "Now, we have the identity of the victim, proving that the sunken ship is a murder scene. Next step?" As soon as he finished speaking, Boyu's cell phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number. The caller ID showed Captain Zhang Wei. Boyu raised his eyebrows, pressed answer, and turned on the speakerphone. "Hello? Boyu? I'm Zhang Wei. I heard from old Sea Wolf that you were searching for the Sea Eagle." His voice was hoarse, like an old sail that had been sharpened by the sea breeze for many years, and there was the noise of waves crashing on the shore in the background. "Captain, what a coincidence," Boyu lowered his voice and motioned to Minghui to record. How do you know my number? What's the matter? Zhang Wei coughed and said in a roundabout way, in the small port circles, news spreads quickly. I heard that you dived into the wreckage and you were not shy. That ship, well, the storm came fiercely, so I tried my best. The people on the ship are all old friends. That boy Chen Kai has been hanging out with me for several years. Xiao Ming is him. I wanted to take them to pick up some treasures, but I didn't expect. He paused and said in a low voice, I set the route, but the wind was too strong and it veered off course. Blue Shark Company? They are one of the sponsors, Mr. Li's enemy. I charge some supply fees, there's nothing fishy about it. Boyu heard the implication and sneered in his heart. This old fox shared the past but concealed the key points, and ignored the deviation of the route and the transfer of money. Captain, the blood stain analysis revealed that Chen Kai and the others were not drowned, but were chopped. The children's DNA is also there. The supply fee you mentioned includes 3 large remittances from the Philippines. A trick by a smuggling group? There was silence on the other end of the phone for a few seconds, and Zhang Wei's breathing became heavier. Boy, you dug deep. But there are rules at sea, so don't make random guesses about some things. I'm waiting for you to come and chat in the old warehouse on the East Pier. Don't bring anyone with you, be alone. There was a warning in his tone, and he added before hanging up, be careful, not all fish in the port are friendly. Boyu put down his phone and looked solemn. He took the bait, but he was hiding a secret. The meeting in the warehouse sounded like a trap. Minghui stopped typing on the keyboard and blinked. The clues about the smuggling group came together. Blue Shark's data showed that they specialize in transporting high-tech goods, from data chips to black market arms. On the day of the shipwreck, the abnormal pulses transmitted on the ship were uploaded stolen business intelligence. Zhang Wei was an insider and helped them sink the ship and destroy the evidence. Boyu stood up and looked out the window at the darkening sea, switching between the data flow of the virtual network and the waves of reality in his mind. He felt like he had changed, no longer the passionate and impulsive young detective, but a more alert hunter, ready to chase the blue shark on the sea. Minghui packed up his laptop and the two of them pushed open the door and went out. The night wind brought a salty premonition, and the lights of the East Pier swayed in the distance, waiting for them to break in. The night was as thick as ink, and the lights on the East Pier swayed in the fog, like ghostly eyes. Boyu rode his motorcycle, the engine roaring through the sea breeze. Minghui's scooter followed closely behind, and the two of them tacitly avoided the flashing lights of the port patrol. Boyu's heartbeat fluctuated with the rhythm of the waves. He glanced at the rearview mirror. Minghui was wearing headphones and staring at the data tracking on his phone while sliding. The money flow is locked, Minghui's voice came from Bluetooth, mixed with the roar of the wind. Those 3 remittances jumped from the Philippine bank to Blue Shark's offshore account, and then to Zhang Wei's private number. From the cash withdrawal records of the ATM near the pier, we can see that he spent $200,000 in the East District last week to buy a second-hand speedboat. There must be something fishy in the warehouse. Don't rush, Boyu responded, his tone as steady as an anchor. Zhang Wei made an appointment to meet alone, maybe it was a bait. We called Sister Fei, she is near the laboratory, and the blood stain report is about to come out. Working together as a team is better than going alone. He had a flash in his heart. In the past, he would go straight to the tiger's den, but now he has learned to use strength. This is the charm of investigation, like the undercurrent of the seabed, you have to slowly figure out the direction. Minghui laughed, I got it, buddy. You've become smarter, and you're no longer the hot-blooded diver boy. I called Sister Fei and told her to go straight to the meeting point at the pier. He swiped his finger and dialed the video call. Ling Fei's face popped up on the screen. She was packing up the test tubes in the laboratory, with the centrifuge buzzing in the background. Hello, Minghui? Why is the wind bringing you here so late? Her voice had a laziness at night, but could not hide its professional sharpness. Sister Fei, it's an urgent mission, Minghui explained breathlessly, let's go to Zhang Wei's warehouse to dig for clues. Are there any new findings from the blood stain analysis? Boyu said you should have the goods. Boyu nodded beside him, and the motorcycle turned into a narrow alley and stopped in the shadow of the dock. Ling Fei raised her eyebrows, the screen shook, and she grabbed a printed report. "I'm just about to tell you." After comparing the insurance records, Chen Kai and his expedition team have purchased high-cost marine insurance, and the beneficiary is Mr. Li's subsidiary. But the blood-stain pattern shows that the fight in the cabin was not an accident. The height of the O-type blood spatter proves that Chen Kai was pushed from the upper bunk, and the AB-type blood was Xiao Lu's attempt to resist, and the child's DNA was mixed in the cracks of the floor, as if left behind when being dragged. Motive? Insurance fraud. On the day of the shipwreck, Blue Shark Logistics forged a logbook and claimed that the treasure expedition failed and the whole team was missing, so they could receive huge compensation. The treasure was just a cover, and the real purpose was to destroy the ship and cover up the smuggled data chip. She paused and said in a low voice, "Xiao Ming, that kid, was 8 years old, and his whole family suffered because of his parents discovering the inside story of the fraud. Boyu, this case is not just about money, it's about human life." Boyu's throat tightened, and the dark red of the wreckage appeared in his mind, and now it had an outline. Sister Fei, irrefutable evidence. This explains why the route deviated, deliberately hitting the rocks, pretending to be a natural disaster. "Thank you, see you in our warehouse, bring your evidence package." He hung up the video and turned to Ming Hui. "Did you hear? Zhang Wei is the key to fraud and smuggling. He witnessed everything, but he was paid to keep silent. Now, we force him to tell the truth." The three of them quickly gathered behind the container at the dock. Ling Fei was carrying a black backpack filled with evidence folders and flashlights. The night wind ruffled her short hair, and she glanced around. "There are many spies at the port, and the Blue Shark truck just passed here. Let's sneak in through the side door, and don't alert the guards." Boyu nodded, leading the way in the dark, his steps as light as a cat splashing in the waves. They bypassed the rusty iron fence and climbed into Zhang Wei's old warehouse, a low steel building with a broken high-end maintenance sign hanging on the door. The smell of engine oil and salted fish filled the air. It was pitch dark inside. Ming Hui was the first to turn on his laptop, and the blue light illuminated his face. "I scan for heat while the guard smokes at the back door. Boyu, you and Sister Fei search the shelves while I crack the warehouse surveillance." His fingers flew, and an encryption interface popped up on the screen. "This lock is old-fashioned, but it is connected to the internet Blue Shark's back door. Wait, a trap." Suddenly, a red alarm flashed, and the virtual program wrapped around his code like a sea snake, trying to counter-track the IP. "Damn it, quantum lock." Ming Hui cursed, sweat beads sliding down his forehead. "They upgraded the security. I have to take a detour and cut in through the old router." Boyu came closer, thinking quickly. "Use the public Wi-Fi at the port to bounce, like a ship taking advantage of the wind. Don't crack it hard, feed it fake data to lure away the hounds." His suggestion was precise. Ming Hui's eyes lit up, and the sound of the keyboard was like a rainstorm. A few minutes later, the alarm went off, and Ming Hui breathed a sigh of relief. "It's done. I have the surveillance footage in hand, and the internal map of the warehouse has been downloaded. Look at the east cargo hold, there is an abnormal heat source, smuggled goods." They followed the plan and sneaked. Ling Fei's flashlight swept across the stacked wooden boxes, causing dust to fly. "Here," she whispered, pointing to a row of boxes marked fishing gear. "Pry open and take a look." Boyu used a knife to pry open the cracks, and the box lid popped open. What was inside was not a fishing net, but a flashing data chip in a sealed metal tube, a high-tech eavesdropping device and encryption module. "Smuggled goods," Boyu murmured. "Blue Sharks use expedition ships to transport these and steal trade secrets. Treasures are smoke bombs, and shipwrecks destroy evidence." He ran his fingers over the chip, and his passion surged like a tide. When he was a child, he was obsessed with the legend of ocean ruins, and now this passion turned into a determination to dig out the darkness under the sea. During the search, Ming Hui's laptop beeped again. "The encrypted file has been cracked. Blue Shark's internal network has been exposed. They control the entire ocean exploration circle, bribe captains to forge routes, and transport black market data. Zhang Wei's file is inside. He signed a confidentiality agreement. On the night of the shipwreck, he witnessed Chen Kai discovering the fraud and tried to call the police, but was silenced by Blue Shark's men. Zhang Wei was forced to remain silent in exchange for money and threats. Before he finished speaking, a flashlight came from deep inside the warehouse, accompanied by a hoarse voice. "Who's there?" "Boys, the game is over." Zhang Wei walked out of the shadows, his tall figure blocking the exit, holding an iron rod in his hand, his face a mixture of anger and exhaustion. "Boyu, I told you to come alone. You broke the rules by bringing a partner." Boyu looked directly at him without flinching. "Captain, I can't hide it anymore. The bloodstains prove that Chen Kai did not drown, but was harmed by your supply money. We have cracked the Blue Shark file. You witnessed everything, but you paid to shut up. Xiao Ming, that child, was 8 years old. Just because you veered off course and hit the reef, his whole family died." His voice was like waves hitting the reef, firm and accusing. Zhang Wei's iron rod drooped, his shoulders slumped, and his eyes avoided the light beam. "Damn it, I'm not the mastermind." On the day of the shipwreck, before the storm, Chen Kai rushed into the cockpit and shouted that he had found Blue Shark's chip cargo and called the police. Mr. Li's enemies sent people on board the ship. I tried to dissuade them before taking action, but they threatened my family. I could only deviate, pretend to be a natural disaster, and replace them. Let me go. Treasure? That's an insurance bait, defrauding Chen Kai's family of hundreds of millions. I'm sorry for them. I've been carrying a blood debt for 3 years. He coughed, his voice trembling. The leader of the Blue Shark is in the sea fortress, in international waters. If you dig too deep, you will be swept away by the waves. Ling Fei stepped forward and handed over the report. "Captain, this is DNA evidence. If you tell the truth in court, you can atone for your sins. Don't be silent anymore." Ming Hui added, "We have file backups, and all your account transfer records are there. Cooperate, otherwise the Blue Shark will kill you first." Zhang Wei was silent for a long time, and finally nodded. "Okay, I'll give you the coordinates. There is their transfer point outside the wreckage. But when going to sea, you have to be careful during the stormy season. Blue Shark's speedboats patrol like a swarm of sharks." He turned around, pulled out an old chart from the shelf, and spread it out on the box. "This is the true route. Chen Kai gave it to me before he died. Go ahead, boy, but remember, the sea is not forgiving." Boyu stared at the chart and pieced together the timeline in his mind. Blue Shark bribed Zhang Wei and forged the route. Chen Kai discovered the fraud, silenced the ship and sank the ship, and the insurance money was used to launder the smuggled goods. The puzzle piece is complete, and his passion is no longer a childhood fantasy, but a raging determination to dive to the bottom of the sea and regain the truth. "Thank you, Captain. Let's go to sea and end this scam." He put away the chart and turned to the team. "Ming Hui, back up everything. Sister Fei, contact the police to block the port. Early tomorrow morning, charter a boat and set off. The Blue Shark's fortress is waiting for us." The night wind poured in from the cracks in the warehouse, carrying the low roar of distant waves. The 3 figures merged into the darkness. The lights on the east pier gradually faded away. The fog on the sea became thicker, as if a bigger storm was brewing. It was just dawn, and the fog on the east pier had not yet cleared. Boyu and his party had already squeezed into an old boat rental company office. The air was filled with the smell of coffee and diesel. The fat boss behind the counter squinted at them with a cigarette in his mouth. "Going to sea? Stormy season, you young people are so brave. Blue Shark? That's my old partner's old boat. It's second-hand. The engine is stable, but don't expect it to fly." Boyu handed over the cash and lowered his voice. "That's it, Captain. Add a navigator and a backup generator. There are 5 of us. We need it urgently." The boss caught a glimpse of Zhang Wei following behind, his tall figure blocking the door, and frowned. "Hey, Captain Zhang? Are you retired? Lead new people to the sea, be careful of capsizing." Zhang Wei snorted, did not answer, just grabbed the key. turned and walked towards the dock. Ling Fei followed with the evidence bag and leaned close to Boyu's ear. Is he really reliable? That look in his eyes last night seemed to be hiding a ghost. He took the money from Blue Shark, but what if he goes out to sea and falls out? Minghui pushed the laptop case and typed on the keyboard as he walked. Sister Fei, don't panic. I backed up all the files last night and his IP track was locked. Boyu, what do you think? As the leader, I have to give everyone reassurance. Boyu stopped and turned to face the team. The sound of waves crashing on the shore echoed behind him. He took a deep breath of the sea breeze, and the confrontation in the warehouse last night flashed through his mind. Zhang Wei's tired eyes were like old scars swollen by seawater. Listen, Zhang Wei is not a saint, but he owes Chen Kai his life. The chart he gave him last night was genuine. I compared it with the satellite map, and the route points directly to the shipwreck area. If he wanted to sell us, he would have called the Blue Shark's thugs to come. Now, we are his atonement ticket. Minghui, you keep an eye on the internet. Sister Fei, the blood evidence is on board for analysis. Zhang Wei, you are responsible for the puzzle. Together, the Blue Shark's fortress is not monolithic. His words were as solid as the anchor. Ling Fei nodded, and Minghui grinned. Boss is mighty. Let's go. The Blue Shark is a medium-sized fishing boat with a patchy deck and a cabin stuffed with rope nets and old buoys. Zhang Wei started the engine, the diesel engine roared, and the ship trembled as it left the dock and cut through the morning fog. The sea was calm at first, but an hour later, the wind picked up and the waves crashed in like wild horses. The ship swayed from side to side, and salty water splashed onto the deck. Boyu held onto the railing and looked at the gray sky in the distance. Captain, what's the wind direction? This wave seems to be swallowing the boat. Zhang Wei held the steering wheel steady, his beard covered with water droplets, and his rough voice carried the calmness of an old Jianghu, southeast wind, a precursor to a storm. The transfer point of the Blue Shark is in international waters, 5 nautical miles away from the sunken ship. I drove a small path and bypassed their radar patrol. But boy, you have to listen to me first to tell me the inside story, so as not to risk death by going to sea. He glanced at the cabin, where Minghui and Ling Fei were busy working at the narrow table. Blue Shark is not a trivial operation. Mr. Li's subsidiary is a front, and behind it is a multinational group that specializes in smuggling data chips, military grade, and selling them to the black market in Southeast Asia. On the day of the shipwreck, I was planning a treasure expedition. Unexpectedly, before Chen Kai boarded the ship, Mr. Li's men gave me a box of supplies, saying they were high-tech fishing gear. It turned out to be eavesdropping devices and encryption modules worth hundreds of millions. They used the expedition team to transport goods, forged routes to hit the rocks, and silenced witnesses. After Chen Kai found out, he rushed into the cabin to call the police. I couldn't help but veer off course to buy time for them to let my family go. But Xiao Ming's child. I will never forget him crying and asking his parents why the boat rocked. Zhang Wei lowered his voice and hit the steering wheel with his fist. I am not a good person, but now, I am helping you. The coordinates are here, and there is their secret cabin under the wreckage, which contains the transfer records of the mastermind. Boyu nodded and patted him on the shoulder. That's enough, Captain. Your experience saved our lives. Minghui, do you hear that? Where's the group's fleet? In the cabin, Minghui's laptop screen flickered. He put on his headphones and connected to the ship's satellite antenna, his fingers dancing like a piano. Locked. 3 patrol boats from Blue Shark came from the Philippines, sailing at 20 knots, and headed straight for the wreck area. There was a loophole in their network, so I implanted the tracker, like feeding fish bait. Wait, the heat map shows a large ship parked near the wreckage, Mr. Li's private yacht? No, the encrypted signal is strong, it must be the core of the fortress. Ling Fei spread out the bloodstain report next to her. As the boat rocked, she stabilized the microscope and took out a new sample from the evidence bag, the edge swab of the chip taken from the warehouse last night. The wind and waves are strong, but this work must be done quickly. The reanalysis results show that the blood stains are mixed with trace metal residues, which are not rust on the ship, but high-end alloys, which come from the data chip casing. Chen Kai must have touched the cargo box during the fight and left fingerprint DNA. Blue Shark's fake logbook said it was a natural disaster in the shipwreck, but this proves that they had planned to silence them. Boyu, look at this timestamp. 1 hour before the shipwreck, the record skipped a frame, a loophole. She handed over the tablet, her eyes bright. Boyu came closer, and clues flooded into his mind. The files cracked last night, Zhang Wei's sea map, and the bloodstain pattern were all put together. He rubbed his temples and thought, in the past, he would run around, but now he has to steer like a captain and stabilize the overall situation. Yes, there is a loophole here. Blue Shark's logs are quantum encrypted, but the frame skipping is a human trace. They changed the GPS data, pretending to deviate from the storm, but actually hit the reef intentionally. The beneficiary is Mr. Lee's subsidiary, but the transfer record points to the hidden cabin under the wreckage of the shipwreck, where there are backup servers and the mastermind's hideout. It's not Mr. Lee, it's his enemy, the boss of the group, using the sunken ship as a cover. Captain, is this the right route? We can head straight to the wreckage and we can block them. Zhang Wei turned the helm to avoid a big wave and shouted, yes. But diving in windy waves is dangerous. I'll teach you to use an old-style compass, don't rely solely on electronics. Blue Shark's patrol boat is fast, listen, the sound of the engine. Suddenly there was a low hum on the sea surface, and 3 black speedboats sprang out of the fog, like sharks tearing through the waves, and headed straight for the Blue Shark. There was a sudden burst of gunfire, bullets grazing the deck and scattering sawdust. Damn, we caught up. Minghui jumped up, the laptop was so hot that his hands were hot. Their radar locked on us, I counterattack. Implant a virus to paralyze their navigation. His fingers were tapping wildly, and the code on the screen was writhing like a sea snake. The lights of the speedboats in the distance flickered, and the engine sound was out of rhythm. One ship hit the waves and turned crookedly. Boyu shouted, Zhang Wei, full speed. Sister Fei, grab the evidence. Minghui, interfere with their communications, let's get rid of it. The hull of the boat surged, the waves hit like a landslide, and salt water poured into his mouth, but his eyes were firm and he grabbed the walkie-talkie. Team, believe me, this chase is a turning point. The Blue Shark is panicked, we are close to the wreckage. Ling Fei gripped the railing tightly and laughed and scolded, Boss, your leader is like a pirate king. Zhang Wei pulled the throttle full, his beard flying, Boy, learn fast. Left rudder, go around the reef. The speedboat approached, but Minghui's virus was like an invisible net, disrupting their screens. A patrol boat passed the reef, letting out a wail of metal tearing. It was windy and rainy, and the sea was like a boiling pot. The Blue Shark was struggling in the trough of waves. Boyu looked to the horizon, and the outline of the wreckage faintly emerged. There was thunder in the fog, like the roar of a storm calling. The wind and rain were like a furious beast, and the Blue Shark bumped forward in the trough of waves. The outline of the wreckage finally became clear from the fog, like a sleeping giant whale. The broken hull was half buried among the shoals and rocks. The sea water beat against the rusty steel plate, making a low moan. Boyu wiped the rain off his face, grasped the deck railing, and looked at Zhang Wei. Captain, stop. We have to get into the water quickly, the sound of the pursuer's engine is approaching again. Zhang Wei gritted his teeth and pulled the steering wheel. The ship turned sharply to avoid a hidden reef, and the water spray hit his face like a whip. He glanced behind him and saw that the 3 black boats on the sea had regrouped, their lights flickering in the rain like will-o'-the-wisps chasing ghosts. Boy, you guys, go down and I'll run around in circles. The Blue Shark's doglegs have underwater radars, but this reef area is my old territory. I'll use an old fishing net to block it. There was a tremor in his voice, not because of fear, but because of the sourness of bringing up old things again. The cabin door opened with a bang, and Minghui poked his head out, raindrops sliding down his glasses. Boss, the virus only lasted for half an hour, and their backup system was activated. The server heat map shows that there is a floating data cabin under the wreckage. The encryption level is high. I have to connect to the satellite antenna of the ship. Ling Fei dragged out the diving equipment from the cabin, and the oxygen bottle rolled on the deck. She caught it steadily and handed Boyu a bulletproof diving suit. Boyu, put this on. I brought the blood sample so that if there's any new discovery, I can compare it on the spot. But underwater visibility is poor and there are many rocks. Don't be a hero, she said, with a trace of worry in her eyes, like a tacit understanding between old friends. Boyu nodded and quickly put on the equipment. A flash occurred in his mind. In the past, he would be impulsive, but now he has to calculate every step carefully, and the life of the team depends on it. He turned to Zhang Wei. Captain, I believe your remorse. But tell me, on the day the ship sank, why didn't you call the police in time? What was hidden in that box of supplies to make you shut up? Zhang Wei's helmsman shook, and the blue shark scraped against the waves, making a creaking sound. He growled, shut up. They have photos of my family. Xiao Ming was only 8 years old at the time, crying and asking me why I didn't go home. The supply box contained rare mineral chips, smuggled from the South Pacific mines, military grade, sold to the black market to get a new ship. But I thought it was just smuggled goods, but I didn't know they were going to silence the whole ship. When Chen Kai rushed into the cabin, I was supposed to help in the end. I pushed him away and let them drag away Xiao Ming's family. Now, I'll help you sneak in to pay off the debt. Go ahead, kid, don't let me wait in vain. His eyes were red with tears mixed with rain. He turned around and jerked the throttle, and the black boat behind him lost its direction, and one hit the buoy with a muffled sound like an explosion. Boyu patted Zhang Wei on the shoulder. That's enough, we won't let you be in debt anymore. He turned to the team. Minghui, you hacked into the server on the ship. Sister Fei, follow me into the water to collect evidence. Captain, hold your retreat. Ling Fei fastened her mask and made an okay gesture and said, Boss, remember, the pattern of bloodstains is like a puzzle. If one piece is wrong, the whole thing will be messed up. Let's go. The two of them climbed over the railing and dived into the cold waves. The sea water pressed against them like lead, and their vision blurred instantly, leaving only bubbles and undercurrents. The underwater world is eerie and chaotic, with the steel skeletons of the wreckage twisting into a maze, and coral and seaweed entwining the broken bulkheads like living traps. Boyu was leading the way, his flashlight scanning the rocks and his oxygen meter ticking. He gestured to Ling Fei, be careful of obstacles. Suddenly, a metal net popped out of the darkness, like a defense modified from an old fishing net, and wrapped around his legs. He struggled to draw out the dagger and cut it off, and his heart tightened. Blue Shark's digital surveillance was not only on the internet, but also had traps set up underwater. Ling Fei swam closer, helped him steady his body, looked at each other through the mask, and gently pressed his shoulder with her hand. Calm down, boss. There's new rust on the net, not old goods from a sunken ship. They have been here recently. Her voice came from the communicator, vague but firm. They got into the main cabin of the wreckage. Boyu's gas lamp illuminated a pile of scattered metal fragments. The remains of the floating server were half buried in the mud. The red light was still flickering faintly, like a dying eye. Minghui's voice came from the earphones. Boss, I'm connected. The antenna on the ship is stable. Hack into the floating server. Wow, this encryption is like an iron barrel, but it has a backdoor. It's downloading. Wait, the evidence has exploded. It's not just a data chip, it's a rare mineral, thorium or crystal, smuggled from an Australian mine, radiation level, used to make illegal nuclear batteries. The transfer records point to the multinational group, and the beneficiary is Mr. Lee's boss, an organization called Sea Eagle Alliance, codenamed Eagle King. They used the shipwreck to fake the accident, launder the mineral funds, and sell it to the Southeast Asian arms dealer. This conspiracy is so big. Boyu's heartbeat accelerated and the water pressure made his chest feel tight, but he steadied his breathing and swam toward a crack. Ling Fei was exploring the way forward when she suddenly stopped and pointed her flashlight at a fresh bloodstain on the bulkhead. The bright red was mixed with bubbles and had not been completely diluted. Boyu, look at this. The blood spatter pattern looks like a close-up struggle. It's not Shinkai's blood from the old case, it's fresh. The sample was taken and compared on site. Oh my god, this DNA sequence matched an old smuggling case 5 years ago, an explosion in an Australian mine, workers missing, and a suspected syndicate silenced. Link on. Their mineral chain has been dark since then, and the sunken ship is just the tip of the iceberg. Her voice was filled with excitement, and she walked closer to Boyu and shared the scan on the tablet. Boss, there are footprints around the bloodstains, and they are wearing military boots. The Blue Shark Patrol came to seal it recently. There was a sudden vibration under the water, and the digital surveillance was activated. The hum of the unmanned submarine came from a distance, like a mechanical shark approaching, and the infrared scanning beam pierced the darkness and shined directly on their hiding place. Boyu took Ling Fei's hand and flashed an inner monologue. Don't panic, reason quickly, like putting together the last piece of a puzzle. He gestured, withdraw. But clues emerged in his mind. Sister Fei, Minghui, listen, Zhang Wei's inside story, blood-stained alloy, mineral records, and log frame skipping are all correct. Blue Shark is not an independent smuggler, it is the Sea Fortress of the Sea Eagle Alliance. Mr. Lee is just a cover, and the mastermind is the Eagle King. A man hidden in the arms broker in the Philippines was the mastermind behind the mining case 5 years ago. He used the shipwreck to hide the minerals and killed Shinkai to prevent clues from being leaked. Now, they are chasing us because they are afraid that we will dig up the Alliance list. I have to not only reason, but also lead everyone out of the encirclement. In the communicator, Minghui gasped, Boss, the identity of the Eagle King has been locked. He is a former naval colonel, alias Xiaoling, and the IP trace points directly to his yacht, which is 1C to the north of the wreckage. After the evidence is downloaded, I paralyze their helplessness. There are human boats, but the pursuers are on board, and Zhang Wei is on top. Gunshots and Zhang Wei's roar came from the water. Boys, come up. The Blue Shark can't hold it anymore. I tied one with a fishing net, but the Eagle King's speedboat is coming. It's as black as a ghost ship. Boyu and Ling Fei struggled to swim upstream, but the obstacle net entangled them again. He slashed with a dagger, leaving a bloody gash on his leg, and the seawater seeped in and stung. But he gritted his teeth. Sister Fei, hide the evidence. Let's surface and fight. The propeller of the unmanned boat roared and approached, and red light swept across their figures. In the suspenseful darkness, Boyu's eyes were as firm as a beacon, and the team's bond became tighter and tighter in the crisis. When it surfaced, Zhang Wei's Blue Shark was circling the black boat in the rain. Bullets pierced the air, and the silhouette of Eagle King's yacht emerged in the distance, like a beast ready to go. Boyu's head just broke out of the water, and the sea water slapped his face like an icy whip. He took a sharp breath, and raindrops hit his mask, blurring his vision. Ling Fei followed closely behind him, and the two of them swam hand in hand to the side of the Blue Shark. The ship's hull swayed on the waves, like a lonely boat struggling in the strong wind. The whistling sound of bullets passed by his ears, and one shot splashed on the water. Boyu roared, Sister Fei, hold on tight. Minghui, pull us up. Minghui stretched out his hand from the side of the deck, and the rainwater slid down his satellite dish. He gritted his teeth and grabbed Boyu's arm. Boss, hurry up. Eagle King's yacht has accelerated, their unmanned boat is paralyzed, but there is heavy firepower on the main ship. Captain Zhang is stalling for time, and the fishing net has entangled a black boat. As soon as the sound fell, the Blue Shark turned sharply. The roar of the stern engine overwhelmed the wind and rain. Zhang Wei's voice came from the cockpit, like the roar of an old wolf. Boys, climb up. This storm is coming. The chart shows that the low-pressure area is approaching. We have to go back to the outside of the reef area to get rid of these dogs. Boyu and Ling Fei climbed onto the deck, and the oxygen bottles made a muffled sound as they hit each other. Boyu pulled off his mask and panted as he glanced around. The lights of the black boat swayed in the rain, and the Eagle King's yacht approached like a ghost, and the machine gun tower on the bow shone with a cold metallic light. Ling Fei quickly took off her diving suit and hugged the blood sample in the waterproof bag. "Boss, the underwater evidence is stable, but it needs to be analyzed quickly. The DNA in this new blood stain not only connects to the old case, but also contains trace chemical residues, like inhibitors, used to cover up traces of radiation. The Blue Shark Patrol is not sealing the secret casually, they are erasing the mineral evidence." Under the control of Zhang Wei, the Blue Shark got into a cluster of buoys. The old fishing net spread out like a ghost and entangled a pursuing boat, making a scream of metal friction. The gunfire paused for a moment, and the team crowded into the cabin. The bright laptop screen reflected everyone's faces, and the data flow rolled like a waterfall. "Boss, 80% of the server files I downloaded are decrypted. Look at this." He typed on the keyboard, projecting the forged traces of the voyage records. The path of transferring funds, from the Australian mine to the transfer station in the Philippines, is full of fake logs. The beneficiaries are nested layer by layer, and the top one is the senior executive of a company called East China Sea Trading. The boss, CEO Zhao Ying, is the Eagle King. A former Navy captain turned to arms, and was ostensibly engaged in shipping business. He secretly controlled the Sea Shark Alliance to smuggle thorium crystals. On the day of the shipwreck, they silenced Chen Kai because they were afraid that he would find out that the minerals were not supplies but nuclear battery raw materials, which could be sold to the black market in Southeast Asia. Boyu leaned against the bulkhead, rain dripping from his hair. He rubbed his temples, and clues came to his mind like a flood. In the past, he would rush out for a confrontation, but now he has learned to take a deep breath and predict the next step. Zhao Ying is not alone. This trading company is his fortress. The subsidiary Blue Shark Logistics specializes in money laundering. Minghui, the backdoor encryption you are talking about, is their digital firewall, which is designed to prevent hackers. But they didn't expect that we have the inside story of Captain Zhang. He turned to Zhang Wei, who was wiping the water stains on the steering wheel, his face covered with frost. "Captain, the supply box you just mentioned is hidden in the secret room of the main cabin of the sunken ship? Are there any secrets of navigation in that place? We have to use their traps to deal with them." Zhang Wei snorted and nodded, with a hint of recognition in his eyes. "Boy, you have grown up and are no longer the impulsive rookie. The sunken ship is an old-fashioned freighter, and the design has the legacy of World War II. There is a hidden compartment under the main cabin for hiding munitions. The entrance is a pressure lock, which is triggered from the crack in the bulkhead, but the undercurrent of the reef is strong. Without my secret skills, you will die if you swim in. Listen, use the sonar of the Blue Shark." The false signal led their unmanned boat to crash into the reef, and then cut in from the southeast, avoiding the main radar blind spot. In the secret room, there were not only mineral crystals, but also their backup hard drives, which were full of alliance lists and transfer evidence. "I kept silent at that time because I was afraid that they would destroy my family with this thing." His voice was low, like an echo from the bottom of the sea. When he shared these secrets, his hands trembled slightly, but he showed the determination of redemption. The storm finally came, the sky was like ink dumping, lightning tore the clouds, the waves were as high as 3 meters, and the Blue Shark was thrown up and down like a toy. Ling Fei opened her forensic toolbox, scanned the blood sample, and a chemical map popped up on the screen. "Boss, I have resolved this doubt. The inhibitors in the new bloodstains would have interfered with the DNA comparison, but cross-checking the old case files, it matches the remains of the workers who exploded in the mine 5 years ago. It is not a coincidence, it is the group who repeatedly silenced the people in the wreckage of the shipwreck, erasing the clues. Zhao Ying's trading company has an onshore laboratory, and I have to go back to the shore and use professional equipment to completely eliminate it. Otherwise, this evidence will be wandering at sea, and if it is locked by their satellites, it will be all over." Boyu nodded and thought, the team performs its duties. This is the proof of growth. He patted Minghui on the shoulder. "Ming, you continue the hacker war and paralyze their network. The Eagle King's yacht has a floating server, try to implant a Trojan horse, and reversely track his IP. Sister Fei, you and Captain Zhang go back to the port first, and I will reason about the location of the treasure alone. No, the secret room. Captain, draw me a sketch of your secret technique. We will split up and confront each other before we meet. Minghui pushed up his glasses. Typing the keyboard excitedly, boss, it's on me. Their firewall is like an iron barrel, but I have a quantum decryptor, and I have just implanted the virus. The server heat map shows that Zhao Ying's yacht is mobilizing a swarm of drones. Wait, the counterattack is coming. Their anti-hacker program is activated, the screen is flashing, my firewall can't hold it. Damn it, this is AI anti-tracking, like a digital beast biting my line. The alarm in the cabin blared, the laptop buzzed, Minghui's fingertips flew, and a virtual offensive and defensive battle unfolded on the screen. Red data flow rushed into the blue shark's satellite link like a virus, and the green defensive barriers collapsed layer by layer. Boyu came closer. Ming, switch to the backup channel. Anticipate their next step. Xiaoling is not a reckless man, he will use physical pursuit and digital blockade. Captain, speed up to the southeast and lead the unmanned boat into the blind spot. Zhang Wei pulled the accelerator, and the hull jumped out of the wave trough. Lightning illuminated the deck of the Eagle King yacht. There was a figure in black standing on top. The drones took off like a swarm, and infrared scans rushed towards them. Ling Fei clutched the bulkhead. Boss, I will verify on land. All the evidence and doubts will be cleared. But their counterattack is two-pronged, digitally locking our communications and physically blocking the escape route. There are their spies at the port, so I have to disguise myself and enter the laboratory. She handed Boyu an encrypted USB disk. Back up the bloodstained data for use in reasoning. Remember, I'm trying to be strong on my own. Boyu took it with firm eyes. Thank you, Sister Fei. The doubts you resolved allowed me to see the whole picture. The treasures, minerals and hard drives are in the secret room, and the location is hidden in the frame skip code of the forged log. Minghui's data shows that the coordinates are the east cabin of the sunken ship, the depth is 15 meters, and the air pressure lock needs to be triggered at a specific frequency. Suddenly, the hull of the ship shook, and the collision of the unmanned boat came from the stern. Zhang Wei cursed, damn it. They used false sonar signals to counterattack an army, and my secret technique was cracked. Eagle King's AI learns quickly, boy, and the prediction was right. They divided their forces. The two black boats took a shortcut, and the yacht focused on digital attack. Minghui shouted, boss, my Trojan horse. It bounced back. The intrusion into their command system showed that Zhaoling personally ordered the entire team to be silenced. But their counter-AI was activated and the screen went black. No, hold on. The virtual and real confrontation was like swords in the storm, and the data stream exploded on the laptop. At the same time, gunshots rang out again, and the black boat approached 100 meters away, and the waves were mixed with bullets. Boyu stood up and grabbed the binoculars. The rain blurred the lenses, but after wiping them, he could clearly see the outline of the Eagle King yacht. His prejudgment intuition flashed like a beacon. They were going to outflank us, digitally block our calls for help, and physically force us back to the wreckage. Team, follow my command. Minghui, disconnect the main chain and switch to stealth mode. Sister Fei, prepare to jump to the port. Captain, use the fishing net to make a last-ditch effort. I will go to the secret room, dig out the hard drive, and end this conspiracy. The inner monologue is short. Growth is not about being invincible, but knowing when to separate and when to join together. In the roar of the storm, the blue shark turned to the port. The double threat of the Eagle King was like a huge wave. The fate of the team hung on a thread, and the shadow of the confrontation was close at hand. The blue shark's engine roared in the storm, like a trapped animal breaking free from its shackles. The ship's hull jolted violently, and the waves hit the deck, instantly soaking Boyu's clothes. He gripped the edge of the hatch, the wind and rain whipping like whips, the lights of the Eagle King yacht flickering behind him, and the drone of the unmanned boat getting closer and closer, like a group of hungry sharks smelling blood. Minghui's laptop screen flashed in the cabin, and the red alarm was as fast as a heartbeat. Boss, the stealth mode has been switched. Their AI tracking has been interrupted, but the sonar of the unmanned boat is still scanning. We have to get rid of the physical tail. Captain, how to get to the southeastern blind spot? Zhang Wei poked his head out from the cockpit, with water droplets mixed with rain falling down his face. He held the steering wheel firmly with his hands and stared at the chart with his eyes narrowed. Boy, listen to me. The exit route to the port is blocked. The patrol boat of Blue Shark Logistics is setting up a net at the east entrance. Let's take a detour, bypassing the rocks. But the Eagle King learned the lesson and counterattacked with false sonar signals. You too, keep the communication and evidence safe. He turned to Boyu, with a rare warmth in his voice. I owed them back then. I'm paying you back. I was not the mastermind of the shipwreck, I was just the unlucky guy caught between Mr. Lee and Eagle King. They threatened my family and forced me to transport the supplies. They were actually thorium ore crystals hidden in the fake cargo box. Chen Kai discovered the clue. Silence him and I will keep my mouth shut. But now, I want to atone for my sins. The secret technique is all for you. The entrance to the secret room is in the crack of the east cabin, triggering the air pressure lock with a frequency of 15 Hz to avoid the underwater trap. It is an old mine that they planted, which is magnetically guided and explodes when it touches metal. Boyu nodded, and a flash occurred in his heart. The captain's confession was like an undercurrent at the bottom of the sea, pushing him forward. He is no longer the foolish young man who works alone, now he knows how to leverage others' strengths. Captain, thank you. You steer the ship, and I'll take over the helm. Let them think we're panicked. He patted Zhang Wei on the shoulder, and the two exchanged positions. Boyu's hand grasped the steering wheel and felt the pulse of the Blue Shark. Ling Fei handed over the waterproof earphones from the side. Boss, the satellite connection is stable. I sent the blood stain report to the onshore laboratory. Preliminary data showed that the radiation traces in the inhibitor directly matched Zhao Ying's arms experiment records 5 years ago. He was personally involved in the case, not the mastermind behind it, but the butcher behind the scenes. On the day the ship sank, his men used syringes to erase the evidence, but traces of DNA residue were left out. The full report was online within 5 minutes, confirming the identity of the mastermind. Sister Fei, pass it. The Eagle King can't escape now. Boyu shouted, and the ship turned sharply. The Blue Shark entered the reef area, and the waves hit the rock wall with a muffled sound. In the rearview mirror, the Eagle King yacht was accelerating and approaching. The unmanned boat split into 2 routes, one took a shortcut to block it, and the other fired with machine guns. Sparks splashed on the water. Minghui's fingertips were flying on the keyboard, sweat dripping into his eyes. Boss, I paralyzed their communication. The Trojan was successfully implanted, the floating server of the Eagle King crashed, and the group control of the unmanned ship was disconnected. Look, their channel was black on the screen. But the AI counterattack came, like a virus dog biting my back door. I switched to quantum decryption. Hold on. His voice was breathy with excitement, and the team's tacit understanding was like an invisible net, covering every crisis. Suddenly, the ship sank, and the Blue Shark's sonar sounded a sharp alarm. Boyu's prejudgment and intuition flashed like lightning. It was not a coincidence. Captain, underwater trap. They laid mines in advance and magnetically locked our engine casing. Zhang Wei rushed out of the cabin and grabbed the sonar probe. Yes, boy. That's their original twist. The hidden mine arrays buried around the old sunken ship are not just random floating mines, they are remote-controlled magnetic mines, specially designed for detection. The metal wreckage of the dangerous ship. Eagle King guessed that we would return to the wreckage and activated it in advance. Quick, slow down and turn left, detonate one on the edge, and create chaos. Boyu jerked the steering wheel, and the Blue Shark slid against the reef. There was a muffled explosion from behind, and the water column shot into the sky. The unmanned boat was deflected and hit the rock wall and shattered into iron chips. The gunshots disrupted the rhythm. On the deck of Eagle King's yacht, figures in black swayed, and vague curses came from the radio. Damn it, the communication is broken. Chase them, don't let the hard drive be exposed. Ling Fei's earphones rang, the satellite transmission was completed, and she shouted, Boss, the report is online. The final analysis of the bloodstains showed that Zhao Ying's DNA was in the inhibitor, and it was a 100% match. Not only did he order the silence, but he also personally disposed of the body on the sunken ship, leaving fingerprint residue. The onshore laboratory confirmed that this is ironclad evidence that can bring down the entire Sea Shark Alliance. Ming Hui, push this data back to their system has caused the Eagle King to panic. Ming Hui chuckled and typed in the last code, Sister Fei, great job. The data packet was implanted, and their internal communication screen is now full of bloodstains. The Eagle King must have turned green when he saw his DNA. The communication paralysis has been upgraded, the unmanned boats are all flying blindly, and the yacht's radar blind zone has expanded. We have a 5-minute window. The clues in Boyu's mind surged like waves. In the waves, he reasoned while maneuvering the boat, listen, team, this is not a routine chase, their digital fortress collapsed. Captain, your secret technique of atonement saved us. The frequency of magnetic mines is the weakness of their AI. Ming Hui, use the 15 Hz anti-interference to paralyze the remaining unmanned boats. Sister Fei, after you jump into the port, heading straight to the laboratory, the captain and I headed straight for the wreckage. The hard drive was in the secret room, and the treasure crystal was there. The location was calculated from the frame skip code in the forged log. The east cabin is 15 meters deep, and there is a backup exit to avoid undercurrents after the air pressure lock is triggered. His voice was as steady as a rock. He was no longer the impulsive boy in the previous chapters, but a growing leader, taking deep breaths to anticipate every turn. Zhang Wei nodded, and the regret in his eyes turned into action. He grabbed an old fishing net from the toolbox and tied it with a lead weight. Boy, I will go to the wreckage with you. Back then, when I was transporting cargo, I saw the Eagle King hiding things. There was a back door in the secret room that led directly to the main cabin, but the undercurrents under the water were fierce, like the gate of hell in the Taiwan Strait. Redemption. It's not just a matter of words, I'll use my last resort skills to escort you in. Mr. Li is the guise, and the Eagle King is the heart. We can cut off his capital chain by digging out the hard drive. He turned to Ming Hui, boy, you guard the ship and cut off their satellite lock. Sister Fei, see you at the port, disguise yourself as a fisherman and enter the laboratory. The blue shark broke through the blockade and rushed out of the reef area with its engine roaring. The lights of the Eagle King yacht swayed in the wind and rain, and the distance was shortened to 500 meters. Ling Fei hugged the waterproof bag tightly and prepared to join the team. Boss, remember to back up your data. Teamwork is the winner. She jumped into the waves, and the buoy pulled her towards the port. On Ming Hui's laptop, the data flow was reversed, and the enemy's communications were flying like kites with disconnected lines. Boss, the paralysis is complete. They are in chaos internally, and the Eagle King is shouting, seal the wreckage, don't let the detectives in. We have the upper hand. Boyu and Zhang Wei stood side by side on the deck. The storm was beating like a war drum, the outline of the sunken shipwreck loomed in the thunder and lightning, and the traps and secrets hidden under the sea were like the mouth of a giant beast. Boyu held onto the oxygen bottle tightly, feeling short-tempered in his heart. Growing up in a crisis is not about being fearless, but about knowing people and making good use of them. The hull accelerated, and the waves lifted the blue shark and headed straight for the wreckage. The roar of the Eagle King echoed in the intermittent communication. The shadow of the confrontation became thicker and thicker. The treasure and the truth were close at hand. The blue shark's bow split through the waves, piercing the core of the wreckage like a sharp blade. Thunder and lightning tore through the night sky, illuminating the twisted steel ruins. The seawater rolled around the wreckage, faintly revealing a faint green phosphorescence. Boyu jumped from the deck, with an oxygen bottle on his shoulders and a line of diving lights sweeping across the water. He turned to Zhang Wei and shouted, Captain, turn down the engine and let's enter through the crack in the east cabin. Ming Hui, the communication is open. Are you ready for quantum decryption? Eagle King's reinforcements may arrive at any time. We cannot be stuck underwater for too long. Zhang Wei nodded and held onto the side of the boat, with rainwater mixed with sea salt on his face and his eyes as firm as an old fisherman facing a typhoon. Boy, I listen to you. I will guard the ship. If their unmanned boat goes around the reef, I will use fishing nets and lead blocks to block the way. When I was transporting goods, this sea was my backyard. I am familiar with the residual frequency of magnetic mines. A sweep of 15 Hz can short-circuit their gadgets. He patted Boyu on the shoulder, his voice low and full of atonement. After entering, the air pressure of the secret chamber is locked on the wall of the main cabin. Don't touch the metal edge. There is a physical mechanism there, an airbag trap buried by the Eagle King's men. If it is pressed incorrectly, it will release high-pressure bubbles and blow people away. Minghui responded from the cabin, his voice in the earphones mixed with the rhythm of keyboard tapping. Boss, quantum line. The satellite connection is stable. I monitor their floating server. When they paralyzed their communication just now, I intercepted new data. Eagle King's escape plan was launched, and a stealth submarine was prepared to respond from the north side of the wreckage. He used "Why are we still circling the reef?" Now we are against the enemy. His tone was excited, like a nerd who cracked the game level, but he also revealed the calmness of a hacker. After entering the water, the position will be reported every 5 minutes, and I will remotely scan the digital lock. Remember, don't touch the panel randomly. The lock is bound by AI, and touching the wrong code will trigger the underwater alarm. Boyu took a deep breath, put on his diving mask, and had a brief thought in his mind. He was no longer fighting alone. Every piece of the puzzle in this team pushed him forward. The sea water was freezing cold. He and Zhang Wei entered the water at the same time, and the lights of the blue shark stretched into a beam of light above their heads. The diving light illuminated the crack in the east cabin. The crack was like a scar on a giant beast, with seaweed and rusty iron filings growing around the edges. They swam in, and the water surged like invisible pushers trying to spit people out. Boyu led the way, gesturing, "Slow down, scan the frequency." Zhang Wei nodded and activated the handheld device to emit a 15 Hz low-frequency pulse. The steel plate of the wreckage trembled slightly, and the residual signal of the magnetic mine was neutralized, avoiding the hidden explosion point. "Boss, the location is confirmed. The east cabin is 15 meters away, and the air pressure is locked straight ahead." Minghui's voice buzzed in the earphones. The digital panel was scanned, with 3 encryption layers: biometrics, time code, and AI verification. "I'm invading now." Damn, their anti-black wall bounced up, like a video game console in a night market in Taiwan, with layers of levels. Boyu swam to the main cabin door. The interior of the wreckage was as dark as ink, with only the glimmer of plankton remaining. He groped for the panel. The thing was embedded in the wall, with blue LEDs flashing on the surface. The airbags of the physical mechanism were hidden around it, and they would expand and block the way at the slightest touch. "Minghui, what is the biometric code?" "We don't have Eagle King's fingerprints." Boyu asked in a low voice, bubbles popping out of the mask, blurring his vision. Zhang Wei stood on guard, aiming the harpoon gun in the dark. "Boy, don't worry. Back then, I saw them unlocking the door and scanning it with the captain's old badge. It was a relic from the Eagle King's arms era, embedded in the door handle. Try the groove on the east side." Boyu nodded, swam over and pried open a camouflage plate, and sure enough he touched a metal badge, shaped like an eagle's claw. He pressed the panel, the LED flashed, the door cracked slowly, but then got stuck, and the air pressure lock made a muffled sound. It's half open. But the AI verification pops up. The time code is dynamic, based on the coordinates of the day the ship sank. Minghui laughed, and the sound of the keyboard accelerated. I reversed the log frame jump and calculated the code, 47-29-15. "Boss, don't move after entering it." I implanted a Trojan to bypass the verification. "It's done." "The door is fully open, but be careful, there is blood left inside, and my satellite images show it is fresh." The moment the door opened, water poured in, and Boyu and Zhang Wei squeezed into the secret room. Inside is a half-submerged cabin, with corroded instruments hanging on the walls and a gleaming central metal box, the core of the treasure, a container for thorium ore crystals and hard drives. Boyu swam closer, and the light swept over the box. There were fingerprint scratches on the surface, and it was as fresh as if it had just been handled. His heart tightened. The handiwork of the Eagle King? Captain, this box is locked, both digitally and physically. Minghui, skin the box lock. Zhang Wei swam to the corner and raised his harpoon gun. Boy, don't touch it yet. I heard a movement outside. Reinforcements are coming. The blue shark sonar sounded, and the unmanned boats circled the reef. 3 of them are locking on us. Minghui said hurriedly in the headset, Boss, confirm. The Eagle King's group sent reinforcements. 2 speedboats came in from the north, and they brought underwater robots. I guarded the ship and activated the jammer, but their AI got smart and bounced my Trojan. Captain Zhang, you steer the ship in a circle and I paralyze their sonar. Zhang Wei turned around and swam out. I'll go back and cover. You dig the box, and the atonement ends here. He patted Boya's arm, and the remorse in his eyes turned into determination. Remember, there is an alternative exit behind the box, leading directly to the main cabin. The Eagle King's escape plan is an illusion. He wants to use this box to lure us into the trap, and then blow everything up. Boya nodded, feeling the responsibility of leadership in his heart. The old captain cannot be left to carry it alone. He turned to the box, fingered the lock, and the airbag of the physical mechanism inflated faintly. At this time, the earphones cut into Ling Fei's voice, which came from the port satellite connection. Her tone was professional and urgent. Boss, I'm here at the laboratory. I just analyzed the on-site sample you sent, and new bloodstains were found. There are inhibitor residues around the box, but this time it was mixed with seawater salt crystals, not old ones. The DNA matched Eagle King, but he left new traces pointing to the details of the escape plan. The submarine on the north side was a cover, and the real escape route was in the south cabin of the wreckage. He had buried an escape hatch and connected it to the gang's helicopter landing point. The bloodstain pattern shows that he personally wiped it here in an attempt to destroy the evidence, but a trace amount of tissue fluid leaked out. This proves that he returned to the wreckage last night and adjusted the mechanism. This is ironclad evidence, pointing to the fact that the entire Sea Shark Alliance's money laundering chain, from mineral crystals to arms, is all under his control. Clues came to Boya's mind like a flood. He listened and reasoned, and his vision underwater was blurry but as clear as a mirror. Sister Fei, good job. This explains the frame skip of the forged log. It's not an accident. He changed the code to hide the escape cabin. Minghui, use this new data to push back the box lock. Salt crystals are the trigger. Enter 15 Hz in DNA code to bypass the airbag. He gestured and swam to the box, and he found the entrance to the south cabin secret passage, but the box lock was still stuck. Minghui responded quickly, Boss, the code is calculated, Salt Eagle 29. Enter, it's opened. The box is unlocked, but the alarm is triggered. Their AI detects an intrusion, and the mine array around the wreckage is activated. The lid of the box popped open, and the golden light inside was shining. Thorium ore crystals were stacked like a treasure mountain, and the hard drive next to it was flashing red light, and inside were transfer records and silence videos. Boyu grabbed the hard drive and felt happy. He had the truth. But in an instant, the chamber trembled, the airbag mechanism exploded, and high-pressure bubbles surged in like cannonballs, knocking him against the wall. The water flow changed drastically, and Zhang Wei shouted in the earphone, Boy, the reinforcements have taken the bait. 2 speedboats surrounded the blue shark, and I stopped one with a lead net, but the unmanned boat dived under the water and headed straight for you. Minghui, paralyze it. Minghui's voice gasped, Boss, hold on. I cut off the source of the alarm, but the Eagle King's escape capsule was activated, and there was movement in the south cabin. He was in it himself. Boyu stabilized his body, stuffed the hard drive into the waterproof bag, and swam towards the secret passage. Suspense is entwined like undercurrents under the sea. The newly discovered bloodstains of the Eagle King are not a coincidence, but a trap planned by him. The escape plan hides a bigger conspiracy. The Alliance has not only this batch of nuclear materials, but also onshore warehouses. The team's contribution is like an invisible pillar. Ling Fei's analysis peels back the layers of the mystery. Minghui's deciphering opens the way, and Zhang Wei's cover blocks the pursuers. He is no longer a hot-blooded detective, but a leader, commanding with a deep breath, "Captain, divert the speedboat." Minghui, lock the south cabin. Sister Fei, back up the hard drive data. Let's piece together the last link. Eagle King is not a lone wolf. He and Mr. Li's money laundering are two-way. There was a muffled underwater explosion. The light of the unmanned boat approached. The wreckage was shaking. Boyu rushed into the secret passage. The shadow of the Eagle King flashed in the south cabin, and the wave of confrontation was about to swallow everything up. Boyu's diving light swayed in the dark passage, illuminating the outline of the south cabin, a half-collapsed control room with shattered instrument panels and wires tangled like sea snakes. Water seeped in from the cracks, smelling of sand, and Zhang Wei's breathing in the headphones was mixed with the crashing waves. Boy, the blue shark successfully circled. The two speedboats hit the rocks. I used low-frequency pulses to capsize their unmanned boat, but the Eagle King's escape cabin light came on. He is right in front of you, don't let him slip away. Boyu nodded. Although Zhang Wei couldn't see it, he swam faster. The weight of the hard drive was heavy in the waterproof bag, as if it was weighing down the whole truth. At the entrance to the south cabin, the shadow of the Eagle King swayed. He was wearing an oxygen mask, his back to Boyu, and his hands were busy on a floating console. The platform flashed red and was connected to the escape cabin's transmitter. The surrounding wreckage walls were stained with fresh blood, and Ling Fei's words were still echoing in his mind. Boyu raised the harpoon gun and shined the light directly on it. Eagle King, the game is over. Turn around, slowly. His voice came through the communicator, overpowering the blistered Galu. The Eagle King froze and turned back slowly, his eyes behind the mask as sharp as an eagle. He didn't panic, but laughed out loud, bubbles rising from his mask like smoke of mockery. Boy, are you Boyu? The detective that Mr. Li's old fox asked for? You came so fast. I thought the reef could hold you back for a while. He knocked on the console and the screen lit up, showing the trajectory map of the blue shark. But you're Captain Zhang Wei, ha. He thought he could stabilize the ship by going around in circles. My backup network is still there, and the unmanned boat is just an appetizer. In the headphones, Minghui's voice cut through, like a rapid drumbeat. Boss, don't listen to him. I paralyzed their server on the quantum side. The counter-interference signal was intercepted just now, and he wants to use fake data to deceive you into distraction. The Eagle King's floating network is hidden in the satellite relay. I implanted the virus, and now their AI Blackwall has collapsed. The navigation of the backup speedboat, everything was in chaos, and he turned to the northeast reef area and crashed. Ha, this feels like a night market video game. You can pass the level in one go. Minghui's excitement was full of exhaustion, and the sound of keyboard tapping was like raindrops. But be careful, his console is a backup communication, trying to restart the network. I cut off the source, you hold him back. Boyu swam a few steps closer, his vision blurred underwater, but the clues in his mind were as clear as laser light. An inner flash, the danger of the ocean is no longer a fear, but a battlefield. He has changed from a single-handed man to a commander. Eagle King, your counterintuitive plan is too old-fashioned. The bloodstain just now was not accidentally wiped, but you came back last night to adjust the escape cabin, right? The DNA is irrefutable, the tissue fluid matches yours. Ling Fei just confirmed it, the whole chain is locked. Ling Fei's voice came from the earphones, as professional as the announcement at the port terminal, but with warmth. Boyu, that's right. The hard drive data has been backed up, and I cross-checked the bloodstains and transfer records. Since the day of the shipwreck, your smuggling empire has been built on forged logbooks. There is not a single batch of thorium or crystals, but there are 3 onshore warehouses, and the money laundering line goes directly to Mr. Li's subsidiary. The bloodstain pattern shows that you silenced 2 witnesses, one was a crew member, and the other is Zhang Wei's old partner. The traces of radiation in the tissue fluid prove that you are not only involved in arms, but also in nuclear materials. This is not an adventure, it is a transnational crime, and the chains are all tied up. Her tone was firm, like an old friend supporting her. "The news came back to the port, the police have been dispatched, and the helicopter will arrive in 10 minutes. Hold on, our evidence will make it impossible for him to escape." Eagle King's fingers stopped on the console, and the smile behind his mask became twisted. "Little girl forensic doctor? Huh, you think this is the whole picture? That old guy Zhang Wei has been controlled by me a long time ago. He was stained with blood when he transported goods. Now he is steering the ship to stabilize the situation. What a joke!" He tapped the screen and tried to restart the signal, but Minghui's virus made the screen flicker. "Boy, your reasoning is good, but you missed something. Mr. Li is not a cover, he is my partner. The sinking of the ship was a joint design by us, and the disappearance of the treasure was a counterplot to lure you into the trap. Look, this is his transfer record. False data popped up on the screen, showing that Mr. Li's funds flowed to Blue Shark Logistics." Boyu's heart tightened. This was a turning point. The counter-intentional plan was aimed at Team Trust. He steadied his breathing, and his inner monologue was as short as waves. "Can't be shaken, logic is the anchor. Eagle King, you think this can disrupt my position? You're wrong. This record is a forgery. Minghui, scan and confirm." Minghui immediately responded, "Boss, it's fake. The timestamp skips frames, the same method as the shipwreck log. I deduced the source and found it was the Trojan horse you planted in the wreckage last night." After the paralysis was completed, his network was completely black, and even the transmitter of the escape capsule was powered off. Zhang Wei's voice came from the Blue Shark, mixed with the roar of the engine and the roar of the wind and rain. "Boy, don't believe his nonsense. I stabilized the boat and stopped the last unmanned boat with a fishing net and lead weight. It short-circuited and sank to the bottom. This sea is familiar to me like the night market alleys in Keelung, Taiwan. Eagle King, you threatened my family back then. I endured it, but now I am atonement. Boyu, the conflict is with you. I will guard the perimeter and circle around in the storm to give you time to dismantle his excuse." Zhang Wei's tone was rough, but full of emotion, like a big brother holding an umbrella in the rain. Boyu swam in front of the Eagle King, holding the harpoon gun against his shoulder, and the light illuminated the wrinkles under the opponent's mask. "Listen, Eagle King, your empire has been exposed. Logic step by step. On the day of the shipwreck, the forged log contained the frequency of magnetic mines, 15 Hz, the secret technique shared by Zhang Wei, allowing us to avoid the trap. You silenced the crew and left bloodstains as an oversight, but when you came back to wipe it last night, it leaked tissue liquid. The hard drive video shows the 2 lines between you and Mr. Li. He laundered nuclear materials from the South China Sea mine to the European black market. The whole picture is a Sea Shark alliance, not a one-man show. It's too late. The team's evidence chain is like a quantum lock." Eagle King's eyes narrowed, and bubbles popped up quickly, showing his anger. "Boy, you have grown up, from a hot-blooded detective to a leader. But the ocean is my territory. Are you afraid of the storm?" He suddenly reached out and grabbed the console, trying to trigger the backup mechanism, a hidden airbag bomb, and the walls of the wreckage bulged. Boyu's prejudgment instinct flashed. He pushed the Eagle King hard, and the harpoon gun jammed the mechanism rod. "Afraid? I was afraid before, but not now. Because this is not a lonely battle, we are together." The inner fear receded like a wave, replaced by the peak clarity of reasoning. Technological warfare, Minghui paralyzed the network. Psychological warfare, he dismantled lies. Emotional warfare, team interaction was like an invisible shield. Eagle King struggled, the water surged, the south cabin shook, the door of the escape cabin was stuck ajar, storm poured in from the cracks, and thunder and lightning exploded outside the water. "Boss, the police helicopter is approaching. Eagle King's signal is completely cut off. I'll lock his position and send the backup data to them." Minghui shouted, excited and joyful. "Sister Fei, the evidence chain is perfect, we won this hacker war." Ling Fei added, "Boyu, the bloodstains all match, and his empire collapsed. Drag him up, we will wait at the port." Zhang Wei laughed, his voice drowning out the wind and rain. Boy, you did a great job. Pull over to the blue shark and I'll pull you out of the water. Eagle King, you're in trouble this time, like an old gambler who lost all his money in the night market. Boyu clasped Eagle King's wrist, the hard drive in the waterproof bag flashed, the conflict in the wreckage heated up, the underwater undercurrent pushed them toward the exit. Eagle King's low roar mixed with bubbles, the roar of the storm foreshadowed the final showdown, and the team's voice was like a beacon, leading the truth to the surface. The Eagle King's wrist twisted in Boyu's iron-like grasp. He roared, bubbles scurrying out like a furious swarm, and he threw away the harpoon gun. The gun barrel hit the wall of the wreckage, making a muffled sound. The water flow suddenly surged, and the secret passage in the south cabin seemed to come alive, pushing the two of them to slide towards a deeper crack. Boyu's oxygen mask swayed, and the light swept across the Eagle King's belt. There was a folding dagger hidden there, shining coldly. Boy, do you think you will win if you catch me? This seabed is my maze. Eagle King roared through the communicator, his voice distorted like thunder in a storm. He punched Boyu on the shoulder with his backhand, with the force of a former naval colonel. Boyu dodged sideways, and the wind from his fist brushed his mask, causing him to feel dizzy. He didn't retreat, and a brief thought flashed through his mind: this was not a street fight, but an underwater chess game of life and death. Every move had to be accurate with water flow and oxygen. The hard drive in the waterproof bag was as heavy as a talisman. He put his knee on the Eagle King's abdomen. The two of them were entangled and rolling, and the water bubbles obscured his vision. Eagle King, there are loopholes in your labyrinth, just like your forged diary. There will always be time to reveal the secret. Boyu gasped, his voice steady. He grabbed the end of the harpoon gun and used it as a club to sweep across, forcing the Eagle King to take half a step back. In the headphones, Minghui's voice rushed in like a life-saving electric current, mixed with the frantic typing on the keyboard. Boss, hold on. His backup network just tried to restart, and I used quantum mirrors to cut them all off. The satellite relays were paralyzed, and the AI black wall collapsed into pieces. Those unmanned boats? They all turned into discus on the rocks, and the navigation signals were messed up, like a short circuit in the wires of a Taipei night market vendor. Minghui's tone was breathy with excitement, as if he was also fighting for his life underwater. I also intercepted his last order, trying to call Mr. Li's private fleet. But it was too late. The virus was implanted in their encryption chain, locking them all. Boss, you concentrate on hand-to-hand combat. I will take care of this digital battle. When the Eagle King heard this, his eyes widened behind the mask. He whipped out his dagger, and the blade drew an arc under the light and pierced Boyu's oxygen tube. Hacker boy? Humph, you paralyzed my eyes, but these hands are still there. He growled. The dagger grazed Boyu's arm, and tore open the waterproof suit. The hot pain penetrated like seawater. Boyu gritted his teeth and reasoned like lightning in his mind. Eagle King's weakness was an old injury on his right shoulder. Judging from the blood-stain pattern, it was the scar left by his own murder on the day the ship sank. Boyu ducked to the side and kicked Ding-Wan on the knee. The two of them hit the console, the screen shattered and the red light went out. The trigger rod of the airbag bomb was bent and did not explode, but the water pressure made the wall of the south cabin creak. The cracks expanded, and mud and sand filled the air like smoke. Boyu, the evidence has been spread. Ling Fei's voice cut in, professional and urgent, like the warning light of a port lighthouse. I gave all the blood DNA to the authorities and cross-matched the hard drive data. Eagle King's tissue fluid directly pointed to 3 murder cases, and traces of radiation proved that nuclear materials flowed from the South China Sea mine to the European black market. The money laundering lines of Mr. Li's subsidiaries were all exposed, and the police rushed to the plane as locked onto the waters around the Blue Shark, and the SWAT diving team will arrive in 5 minutes. Hold on, this irrefutable evidence makes his Sea Shark alliance like a paper lantern, and it will break with one poke. Her words were like reassurance, and Boyu felt that the mutual trust of the team was like an endless supply of oxygen. Outside, the roar of the storm intensified. Zhang Wei's Blue Shark was bumping among the waves. He shouted into the communicator, his voice drowning out the roar of the engine. Boy, Eagle King's backup is here. Two speedboats sprang out from the northeastern reef area and tried to block the exit. But I used fishing nets and low-frequency pulses to stop them. Look, they were like drunkards at Keelung Fishing Port, hitting the rocks and capsizing. Zhang Wei smiled, his roughness full of atonement and relief. I'm driving around at full speed, the storm is my ally. I owe you a lot in the sea, pay it back now. Boyu, the conflict is about to end, the treasure cabin is deep in the south cabin, I have marked the coordinates, pull you up. The Eagle King gasped and swung the dagger in the air. He rushed towards Boyu and tried to strangle the opponent's neck. The underwater resistance made the movement slow and terrifying. Old Captain? Do you think that by atoning for your sins, you will be cleansed? When you threatened your family and forced you to transport goods, the blood debt will be wiped out? Eagle King mocked, holding his hands like pliers. Boyu's prejudgment and intuition were strong. He turned around and let the Eagle King pounce. He wrapped the harpoon gun around his opponent's arm and pulled him to slide towards the edge of the crack. An inner flash, growth is not fearlessness, but the clarity after knowing fear. From a young detective working alone to a leader commanding a team, at this moment, he saw the whole picture clearly. Eagle King, your excuses are all gone. Boyu gasped, and the light illuminated an iron door in the depths, the entrance to the treasure cabin, hidden at the end of the south cabin. The door was rusty, but the lock was shining with new light. Logic locks you in. The shipwreck was not an accident, it was a trap designed by you and Mr. Lee. The forged log contained magnetic mines, and the silenced crew members left bloodstains. Last night you came back to wipe, but tissue fluid leaked. The hard drive video shows that the treasure is not gold and silver, but thorium ore crystals and nuclear material samples, used in exchange for black market arms. The entire chain is exposed, and your empire collapses like a sandcastle in a storm. He pushed hard, and the Eagle King slammed into the door panel. The iron door creaked open, and the box inside floated, and the crystal refracted blue light in the light, like a lost star. Eagle King struggled to get up, his face behind the mask twisted into an angry beast. Boy, you won this game, but there will always be undercurrents in the ocean. In a last-ditch effort, he grabbed a floating iron pipe and threw it at him. Boyu couldn't dodge, and the pipe grazed his helmet, blurring his vision. However, he pounced on him with courage, pressed his knee on the Eagle King's chest, and held his harpoon gun against his throat. That's enough, Eagle King. It's not me who wins, it's the team. Ming Hui cut your digital lifeline, Ling Fei locked the chain of evidence, and Zhang Wei guarded the sea. This is not a personal hero, it's us working together to dismantle your lies. Boyu's voice was firm, and his growth path converged like water. He transformed from a passionate young man, with eyes as sharp as an old detective. Ming Hui interjected, his voice jumping for joy. Boss, it's perfect. His location has been fully transmitted to the police, and the quantum lock is correct. I scanned those crystal boxes, the radiation levels are normal, but they are worth hundreds of millions, so extra points for evidence. Ling Fei added, Boyu, all bloodstains have been compared, and the authorities have confirmed, Sea Shark the alliance has collapsed and Mr. Lee has been arrested. This conspiracy has been exposed, and everything from the shipwreck to the black market has been exposed. Zhang Wei's laughter sounded, Boy, the iron door is open. Hurry and tie him up, I will pull the rope in. The storm has subsided, the helicopter lights are flashing in the east, victory is in sight. The Eagle King's growl faded, his hand lowered, bubbles slowly emerged, and his eyes turned from sharp to defeated gray. Boyu tied his wrist tightly and grabbed a crystal box. The hard drive in the waterproof bag was placed side by side with the treasure. The heavy weight symbolized the emergence of the truth. The water flow calmed down a bit, and the secret passage in the south cabin led to the exit. The team's voices intertwined like a chorus, leading them towards the sea to break the waves. Outside, waves crashed against the Blue Shark, and the sound of the police helicopter's rotors approached. At the end of the storm, the warm current of crisis resolution surged in. Boyu swam toward the light, and the hero's silhouette elongated in the water. Boyu pulled the rope hard, and Eagle King's hands were tied tightly behind his back. The two of them slowly floated up along the exit passage of the south cabin. The water flow changed from frantic to calm, and the lights swayed in the blue light of the crystal box, like night market lanterns lighting up the Victory on the bottom of the sea. He grasped the waterproof bag tightly. The hard drive and crystal inside were side by side. The heavy feeling made him feel relieved. In the headphones, the team's voices intertwined into a network, lifting him through the waves. "Boss, you have 3 minutes of oxygen left. Don't be brave." Minghui's voice was urgent, mixed with the aftertaste of keyboard tapping. "The thermal imaging of the police helicopter has locked onto you. 50 meters to the northeast, can you hear the sound of the rotor? It's like a night flight at Kaohsiung Airport, landing steadily." "I heard it, kid." Boyu responded with a gasp, the corners of his mouth behind the mask rising slightly. He glanced at the Eagle King, who was struggling in the water, bubbles popping out of his mouth, and his eyes were as gray as a beach wet by waves. "Your Sea Shark Alliance is now a canned fish. Don't glare at me. This is what you asked for." Eagle King snorted through the communicator, his voice muffled. "Boy, do you think arresting me is over? Mr. Lee's money is still flowing, and the European black market will not stop." But his tone no longer had the harshness as before, like a rock after low tide, showing the cracks of fatigue. The sea finally broke, the tail of the storm was still roaring, and the waves lapped against the side of the blue shark. Zhang Wei's thick arm stretched out, grabbed Boya's oxygen tube, and pulled him and Eagle King onto the deck. The searchlights of the police helicopter, like the night light of Taipei 101, swept across the hull of the ship. SWAT divers jumped into the water from another speedboat and quickly took over the Eagle King. Boyu took off his mask and inhaled the salty air. The wound on his shoulder was burning, but he stood upright, holding the crystal box against his chest. "Boy, your risk was worth it." Zhang Wei patted him on the shoulder, his rough palms filled with the coolness of the sea water, and his eyes sparkled with the light of atonement. "Back then, I was threatened by them to transport those damn minerals and harm innocent crew members. Now, the blue shark is finally clean. Thank you for giving me a way out." Boyu nodded, and a brief flash occurred in his heart. This old captain, from concealing secrets to fighting side by side, his transformation is like the sea, and the truth will be revealed after the storm. "Uncle Zhang, let's repay the blood debt of the past together. The police will listen to you. You know best about the forged logs and magnetic mine devices." The helicopter circled and landed, and the SWAT captain jumped out of the boat. He was a middle-aged man with wrinkles carved from the weather of the South China Sea on his face. "Detective Boyu? I'm Captain Chen. Where are the hard drives and crystals? Our customs drone just scanned the area around the blue shark and retrieved all the wreckage of the 2 speedboats. The AI fragments of the unmanned boat confirmed your report. Eagle King and Mr. Lee are all locked." Boyu handed over the waterproof bag, the crystal flashed under the light, and the hard drive was wet but intact. "Here is the irrefutable evidence, nuclear raw material samples, the smuggling chain from the South China Sea mines to the European black market. The blood DNA matches 3 murder cases, and the money laundering records of Mr. Lee's subsidiaries are all in it. The Eagle King personally sank the ship and designed it to be an accident. The treasure cabin contains these crystals, not gold and silver legends." Captain Chen nodded with admiration in his eyes. "Your team has done a great job. Interpol has intervened, and the Sea Shark Alliance's European strongholds have been wiped out. Those radiation traces prove that they want to exchange arms. The stability of the South China Sea depends on this network." He turned to the special police and shouted, "The Eagle King is on board. Mr. Lee has been arrested at the port and his private fleet has been paralyzed. Boyu, we will commend you after the evidence is turned over." A few hours later, the storm receded completely, and the blue shark sailed into Keelung port. The night was dark and the harbor was lit with lights, like fishermen's lanterns swaying on the dock. Boyu stood on the deck, his shoulders bandaged and changed into a clean jacket. Minghui rushed out of the cabin, holding a cup of hot tea in his hand with a proud smile on his face. "Boss, I have encrypted the code of the quantum mirror and uploaded it to the authorities. They said this hacking tactic is worthy of an international award. Hey, I no longer play the underground game. I have turned into a legal consultant and specializes in helping the police track digital footprints. Think about it, hacking into the underwater maze from a cafe in Taipei, this life will be worth it. Boyu took the tea, steaming with steam. Minghui, you are not a bad boy to begin with. It's just that in this world, the internet is like a sea, with too many undercurrents. Thank you for cutting off the Eagle King's backup. Without you, I would have become fish food. The two clinked glasses, and laughter spread in the night wind. Minghui's excitement was like a young hacker's first experience, turning into steady joy. Ling Fei came from the shore, wearing a white coat and holding a stack of reports in her arms, walking briskly. Boyu, the bloodstain analysis has closed the case. The tissue fluid pattern confirmed Eagle King's fingerprints, cross-matched the transfer records of the hard disk, and Mr. Li's money laundering line went directly to 3 subsidiaries. The authorities commended me as the chief forensic consultant, saying that this case is a textbook-level evidence chain. She paused, her eyes gentle. What about you? From taking over the shipwreck case to the underwater confrontation, your reasoning is as precise as a sea chart. The team cannot be without you as a leader. Fei, without your DNA's irrefutable proof, we are still guessing. Boyu smiled back, and a warm current surged in his heart, from the passion of working alone to the maturity of commanding everyone. Along the way, he learned that trust is like an anchor, steadying the wind and waves. The commendation belongs to everyone. The Sea Shark Alliance has collapsed. Justice is not a matter of one person. Zhang Wei walked out of the cabin, carrying an old fishing net on his shoulders, his face dusty but at ease. Boy, the police heard my confession and everything about the day of the shipwreck was cleared. The Eagle King threatened my family and forced me to transport goods. I thought I would be scapegoated for the rest of my life. Now that the Blue Shark is free, I plan to convert it into an exploration ship and take young people to dig for relics in legal waters. I will always remember what I owe you. He stretched out his hand, and Boyu held it. The palm was as rough as a rock, but full of new life. In the port conference room, Captain Chen held a brief closing meeting. A map flashed on the projection screen, the red dots of the Nanhai mine connected to the European black market, and the lines were like broken chains. Detective Boyu, your team has dismantled this conspiracy. The treasure, those thorium ore crystals, have been sealed and are harmless to radiation, but are worth hundreds of millions and are used to fund public welfare marine protection. Mr. Li and Eagle King are facing life imprisonment, and all the minions of the Sea Shark Alliance have been arrested. From bloodstains on shipwrecks to digital intrusions, this case allows us to see clearly the dark side of the ocean. After the meeting, everyone dispersed, and Boyu walked onto the pier alone. The night wind carried the smell of the sea, and the waves lapped the embankment. Looking back on this journey, from taking over the missing treasure case to fighting for his life underwater in the storm, he briefly reflected in his heart, ocean exploration is a dream, full of romance of ruins, but with an undercurrent of greed. Back then, he was a simple and passionate man who pursued mysteries with only logical reasoning. Now, with a more mature vision, he understands that justice requires a team, such as Minghui's digital sword, Ling Fei's eye of evidence, and Zhang Wei's ship's guard. Fear once squeezed him like water pressure, but turned into a clear victory, allowing him to transform from a young detective into a leader, knowing how to balance enthusiasm and caution. In the distance, the sea level is calm, and the stars are reflected on the water, like an endless invitation. Boyu looked at the sea with a slight smile on his lips. New adventures may lie ahead, waiting for him to explore, but this case has come to a successful conclusion, justice has prevailed, and the partners have gotten what they deserve. He turned towards the light, his steps brisk, and the port bell struck midnight, announcing that all was quiet.